I love the enjoyment that's on their face as they're exploring and just in awe of like the creation, the magic that they're doing. Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. This is a video response to the Top Tarot Trumps hashtag started by Musings by Mascha, as well as an adaptation of the Tarot Memoirs series done by Lisa Papez of Supportive Tarot. So again, I'll share some magician moments in my life, in my experience, and my 5 favorite magician cards. Let's get to it. Real quick, speaking of magician energy, creation energy, I'm currently hosting another tarot snail mail reading swap. The activity is you get paired up with a buddy and you just write them a tarot reading that you send through the mail. We had a ton of signups last month, a ton of swaps, and it seems like people had a really good time, so I'm doing another tarot snail mail reading swap at this time. I really enjoy the process of just creating something from the heart, just writing up a fun reading from the heart, pulling cards, just writing, creating some fun mail for someone else to receive. So if you also want to exercise some creation energy, I hope you sign up for this tarot snail mail reading swap as well. Again, all information will be in the description. When I think of the magician energy, a phrase that often comes to mind is you have all the tools you need to get started. I hear this so often that the phrase has started to lose meaning for me, so I want to break that down into different parts and again just see how that applies to my life in actuality. Some concepts that I associate with the magician archetype, the magician energy, is play, is creativity, any sort of creating really. Proactiveness. So the first magician energy or magician moment that I want to talk about is based on this podcast that my sibling actually created. Their podcast is called Powered by Play. It's a podcast that they're running along with their former professor. For context, my sibling is working and studying in the theater industry. Or I guess like the art of theater design, theater production. And my sibling Avery and I were both very similar growing up in that we both had basically a lot of magician energy. We had a lot of different hobbies that we liked to try and different arts and crafts that we like to do and make. We both really liked to work with our hands and also just explore making and creating things out in the world. So Avery's podcast, Powered by Play, the premise of the podcast is that they explore different forms of play and how vital play is for our society and for us as human beings. Okay, so I didn't do a great job of explaining this podcast the first time around, so I'm going to try again here. To clarify, when I say play, I'm not only talking about like playing games. It also just means experimenting with and exploring the boundaries of what is quote unquote acceptable. So I'll just read you the description that they wrote up for the podcast. This podcast explores what we play, how we play, and why we play. We use a wide definition of play, from board and video games, to escape rooms, to cat cafes, to fantasy football, and much more. We believe that play is powerful and that it shapes us. It's an opportunity to explore power dynamics, practice agency, and discover how we might be able to use play to change the status quo. We as individuals feel fulfillment, learn, and connect through play. It powers us, and that's what makes it powerful. So even just based on this description alone, this totally represents like magician energy for me. Playing, experimenting, creating, all of these things that we do to find agency and just use our creative powers. An example of play is in their most recent episode, they talked about carnivalesque. So like, why do we dress up for certain holidays? Why do we dress up for like Halloween, for example? I know some people like to brag on Halloween, like, oh, it's just an excuse for girls to dress sluttily. But the thing is, that also is a form of play, right? Because maybe these people don't have a chance to dress sluttily or in any other way throughout the year. So it's kind of fun to use that creative energy, that creative outlet to dress kind of scantily, either for Halloween or for cosplay or whatever have you. So Halloween, carnivalesque, that is also a form of play. So this whole concept of play, this approach to play, this philosophical, questioning and discussion of like what is play, what is like experimenting, how is it useful for us as people and as a society, that's all totally magician energy for me. So listening to this podcast and exploring these concepts about play has actually really inspired me about the magician energy. Oftentimes I feel that when we want to create things, what usually holds us back is, can we monetize it? Can we make it perfect? Can we make it presentable? Will other people like it? Will other people externally validate us for the thing that we create? But truly the best way to learn something is to just play around with it. People who like to work with computers, for example, they often spend their time like tinkering around with the different hardware that goes into a computer. They often like to play around with different keyboard shortcuts, different softwares on the computer. because they get to play around with the computer, learning the boundaries and the confines and, the inner workings of how a computer works. That's how they get better and more knowledgeable about the computer. The same goes for making art, for example. Like in pottery, you can't make the perfect pot on the first try. You develop the skills to make a better pot through multiple iterations of making pots. And through those multiple iterations, the goal is not always to create the perfect pot. Sometimes, you're creating just pots for fun. Maybe you decide to create pots that are small, pots that are large, pots that have multiple holes, pots that are closed. I guess they're not pots anymore if they're closed. Multicolored, stripes, different patterns. Playing with the art form of pottery, playing with, how the clay works, how to do all these different techniques and what it creates. These are things that you have to experience and do for yourself rather than only be taught by someone else. As much as we get taught by other people, we can't do it perfectly unless we just keep trying and practicing and honing our skills ourselves. Sometimes it can be scary to want to play around with things because, again, it can feel like, oh, I'm like wasting resources, or I'm not creating something that's like monetizable, or that's not perfect. But truly, the epitome of the magician energy is just play, just creating. So while I'm talking about play and creating for the sake of creating, one example here is this junk journal that I recently started. I talked about this in a recent video. So this junk journal is literally just me collaging like different paper things that I was holding on to at home, different business cards. Here's like a wedding invitation, different postcards that my friend sent me. What might have kept me back from doing things like this in the past was, I'm afraid of not making it perfect. I'm afraid of not having like the right color theory or having it look aesthetically pleasing like all the other people's on YouTube's like junk journals. This feels like magician energy to me. This was me like exemplifying and channeling the magician energy because it's not about the final product. It's just about the process of creating. It's about using all the tools that I know of, all the smarts that I have. And by smarts, I mean like, do you know how to glue things down? Do you know how to tape something into a page? Great. That's how you get started with junk journaling. By synthesizing all these different things, the ideas that I have, the materials, the skills, like that's how creating a thing is made. This is the shirt I'm wearing for this video. It says, I'm an artist. It's my favorite clothing brand, Lucy and Yak. And you can see, even though this character's shirt says, I'm an artist, they're here with their tools and they seem a bit confused on what's going on. Not knowing what's going on, you can still have magician energy. It's not about knowing what the final result is going to look like. It's literally just about the process of creating. So shout out to Avery's podcast, Powered by Play. Thank you for teaching me the value of play and giving me new things to explore. I'll link the podcast in the description. I hope that it inspires you to play more in your everyday life and whenever you can, rather than only expecting perfectionism from yourself. The next magician moment, energy, or moment I want to share is creating or running a small business. So if we look at a typical magician card, there usually are 4 elements depicted here, right? We have the wands, the swords, the cups, and the pentacles. What do they all represent? To me, the wands represents energy or willpower. The swords is your smarts, your mental, your mind. Cups is your passion, maybe your dreams, your desire to have your dreams realized. And pentacles is the work you're doing to make it happen. Pentacles is the actual creation act, creation behavior. Creating or running a small business, for example, this is magician energy to me because I have to synthesize and work with all of these different things to make the business happen. To give context as to what my business is or was, so I used to crochet these plushes. This is Aang from The Last Airbender. Hopefully you recognize him. So I have been crocheting since I was in junior year of high school, so I was 17. Some years ago, I decided to start opening up custom commissions because I wanted a chance to create custom dolls. I wanted to crochet more, and I was getting bored of crocheting just for myself because I just don't have that much motivation to improve when I'm only crocheting for myself. So I opened up customer orders and took requests and coordinated with customers and people to, make their dream doll come true. Sometimes they're original characters, sometimes they're characters from fandom and media. So the act of creating or running a small business is so different from just making the art without the business. There's so much other things that I have to think about and learn when it comes to doing business that I wouldn't have known about if I was only making the art. So with the business, let's talk about these 4 elements going into a business. We have the willpower. I need a lot of willpower and discipline to regularly connect with customers. The thing with customer orders is I have to make sure I stay motivated somehow. I can't just drop an order because I don't feel like it anymore. I have to finish it to the finishing, to the end result. There's the cups. So there's like the dreaminess. The driving force behind my small business is I wanted to make cute things. And I love the idea that people are going to be so happy and satisfied when they have the end product in their hands. We have the swords, and I kind of associate swords with like adaptability being the air element. It requires me to learn a lot of new things. And in addition to the swords learning new things, I have to be able to apply them right away with the pentacles. So I feel like swords and pentacles together, it does exemplify that like flexibility, adaptability, because I'm learning something at the same time as I have to implement it. So, every customer order, every marketing post I attempt, it's me learning new things for the business. And the other thing with the business and creating custom plushes is that I feel like a lot of this synthesizing and creating is also happening as I'm creating these custom plushes as well. So I'm learning to design these plushes on my own. I'm learning to take like maybe the pre-drawn design, either from the TV show or from the person's original character. I have to sketch it out and I have to design it in crochet form. And I have to work on all the details, make it perfect. So I feel that there is a lot of magician energy that goes into creating a small business, as well as, of course, making the art itself. And shout out to all the other small business owners or the other like craft monetizers out there. I see you. I know how tough it is to learn business work, business admin, organization work, as well as trying to just make the art itself. It's a lot of different skills that, you're juggling. And again, fellow business owners, fellow monetized artists, I see you. You are a wise, powerful, capable magician, and I know you are figuring it out as you go. The last magician moment or energy I want to share is not one of my own experiences personally, but I do feel like it is resonating with me more and more as I get older. It is parenthood. I feel that parenthood is one of the strongest representations of magician energy because your kids don't really know and probably don't care about your own individual circumstances. Your kids just have needs, and it's up to you, the parent, to figure out how to get those needs met with what you have. And I realize now as an adult that there were a lot of unfair expectations I probably placed on my mom growing up. I don't know about you, but I know that I was guilty of this. I placed a lot of magician-like expectations on my mom. And I feel that she delivered on a lot of it. Like when kids are hungry, she's going to make food. When kids are crying, she's going to figure out a way to comfort them. When kids need education, she's going to figure out where to send them to. When kids need this and that and this and that, the parent just has to figure out how and where to get all these things for that kid.
Another insert here. So I don't think I properly explained what I meant by unfair expectations of parenthood or especially motherhood. So to clarify, I feel that there are certain baseline expectations that we do have of all parents: provide their kids with clothes, with food, education, a place to sleep, etc., etc. But I feel that there are also unfair expectations of parenthood and especially motherhood that are rooted in misogyny, like essentially expecting mothers and women to be able to just do it all. Like for me, I will admit, I did grow up faulting my mom for not doing more than like what I know now is the 1,000 things that she was already doing as a mom. Why did my mom not always know the perfect things to say? Why did she not take care of herself more? Why did my mom not get therapy? Why did she not have more friends? Why did she not have like a higher paying job? That's just what I mean about unfair expectations of motherhood. Like just expecting our moms above all other parents like to be able to do everything that they might not have the actual energy or capabilities for. Like our moms may have some magician energy because they're able to create things and make things happen for us kids, but they're still humans. They're not like all-knowing, all-powerful, beings like gods or deities.
That is why we do see like burnout with parenthood, because oftentimes there's so much like creating and movement that there's no time to rest. There's no way to really take a pause from your kid unless you are able to send them to like daycare or send them to, your friends or your grandparents to take care of them for a bit. The process of raising children is like constant just creation, synthesizing, like trying to get ahead of the curve, trying to see what's coming up next. It's just synthesizing all the different elements and the different energies together. And again, I do think that like as a kid, sometimes you don't realize like all the different things that your parents have done for you. Even now as an adult, there are still things that I'm learning that my parents did for me or tried to do for me, the things that was going on through their mind. So yeah, I do feel like magician energy is really, really strong with parenthood. I realize that for people who are not parents, sometimes we don't understand like how hard it is. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you chose this life, but you can still make a choice and still complain or talk about how hard it is. I'm not completely sure about like my own having kids in the future, but I do see that parenthood is a lot of just magician energy, like almost 24/7. Like thinking about those times when kids are like, I want a birthday party with all my friends. And the parents are like, okay, how are we going to make that happen? The kid's like, I want to go to Disneyland. I want to have fun at a theme park. The parents are like, okay, where are we going to get the funds? We're going to make it happen. So that's magician energy. Let's move on to the top tarot trumps part. So sharing 5 of my favorite magician cards across all my decks. It was a little tough for me to find magician cards that I actually resonated with and connected with. I feel like a lot of magicians across all my different decks were very similar to this card. This is from the Spacious Tarot, and I love this deck, but as far as like top favorite magicians go, top tarot trumps, this magician and all the other similar magicians, they don't really do much for me. Just visually looking at like 4 elements, there's not much action, not much that I can really get from this card on its own. Like I know the meaning of the magician, but if I didn't know what this card was, I would not really know what meaning to get from this kind of card. And a lot of the magicians in my other decks do look very similar to this, where it's just a person having the 4 elements and the infinity sign, and there's just not much I can get from that, like on a intuitive level. But I did find 5 magicians that do speak to me. 2 of them are actually quite similar. I'll talk about them first. The first magician I'll share about is the Somnia Tarot magician. Here we see a figure who's got all 4 elements, and they're reading from a book of some sort. It reminds me of like a magic school or a magic academy of sorts, kind of like how you're just learning from a spell book. Compared to cards like this, where again it's just 4 elements and an infinity symbol, I do like that there's a character here and they seem to be reading from a book and actually trying to make things happen from reading the book. So there's a form of application happening here. The choice to put this magician at the bottom of the stairs is interesting. It gives the idea that there is a whole journey ahead of you. Creating is not the end result, it's just the first step in this journey. The next magician, which again it's kind of similar, is from the Mystical Cats Tarot. This one is also a very similar scene. We've got a cat who is reading from a spell book. They got all the elements there on the table and they're applying what they've learned from the spell book in real time. It really shows the play aspect of the magician energy for me, because here, I'm not really sure what exactly the cat is doing or creating, but the fact that they're just playing around with this magic and learning that way, like that does show magician energy for me. And in the back of the card, we see all these different formulas, these different diagrams. So there's some theory that's happening here as this cat is learning to do magic as well. It includes all the different elements that are there. There's perseverance, there's theory, there's application. It just really exemplifies magician energy for me. Speaking of playing around, the next magician I'll mention is from the Playful Heart Tarot. So this one, I love the joy that is shown in this card. In this card, we see a character with a wand, and it's funny that the magic is not only coming out from one end of the wand, but both ends of the wand. The joyful expression on this character's face reminds me again of what I was mentioning about play and how the magician energy is all about play. It's about joyful creation. I love the enjoyment that's on their face as they're exploring and just in awe of like the creation, the magic that they're doing. Like I'd be so amazed too if I was like making stuff happen. Like I don't know what is happening. Maybe they're making flowers. Maybe they're giving life to the flowers. But I do know that I feel this sort of joy and awe every time I do finish like a crochet plush. Like when I see it coming together and it's more than just like, some yarn strings like on a hook, I feel so proud and so in awe that I'm able to make this. This is the perfect magician energy that I think everyone can and should experience in their life. When you work with your hands, when you make something, work on some sort of project, and you finish it, there's such a feeling of joy and accomplishment and wonder. It's just unmatched. Nothing compares. The next magician I'll mention is from the Lillifer Tarot. One thing I notice in this card is the sparks that are coming out from this figure's fingers. When someone is like a creator, there's just a need to create. It feels like you have like this need to create, this desire to create. This energy has nowhere to go except for like outward to be expressed. There are some times when I feel depleted of creating energy, like I don't know what to make, I don't know what to work on, I just feel tired overall, I don't want to make anything or create anything. But there are some other times when that creation energy just feels so strong in me. That's what inspired me to start a YouTube channel, and I've heard that about other people too. Like sometimes they just feel this need to express what's in them, and it just cannot be contained. They just want to have a space to vent and to dump and to... Okay, not like making YouTube is a negative thing, not just vent and dump. Like, share, really, just express. For some other people, you may never feel like you want to create a YouTube channel, and that's okay. Maybe there are other things that you do feel like creating instead. But noticing the sparks in this character's fingers, like that is magician energy, the desire to create. And we see this fire in like the center here. I feel like that kind of fire looking thing is also driving the like need to create. And the two hands, like the seemingly like another character behind this main character, what that suggests to me is almost as if there's like two people inside me or inside the magician character. There's like the person who is content with just existing, but there's another person, maybe another force that inspires you to create and to make. How many times can I say create in one video? But yeah, just cool magician. Just love the really fiery energy of this card. And the last magician I'll mention is from the Story Medicine Tarot, the fourth installment, Seaweed Sisters. I got this deck last year, and it's very shamanic and very deep, very powerful. I would never have thought in a million years that I would be drawn to this kind of deck. I am enjoying it. I'm taking it very, very slow, but I am enjoying it so far. So on this card, we see two characters. It almost looks like one person and a mirror image of themselves. They're dancing with each other, and there's just like waves and energy around them. The text on this card says, "The secret dance. I'm afraid I don't know how to dance with you just yet, but I would like to learn, for I do know I will love you forever. Perfect love, like a spellbound in blood and instinctive soul nature. The truth is, we are feeling and shaping the dance as we go." Like I mentioned with the tarot memoirs, magician energy, I realize, is not about knowing the end product. It's not about having a perfect journey or a perfect end result. It's just about creating and just seeing what happens, seeing what you learn, seeing how you feel, seeing how it all comes together. So this is just a perfect magician card for me. I just love that it's being portrayed as a dance, because dance in and of itself is also very creative. There's no real finished product that you can make with dance. Even though, yes, we do have musicians and companies and industries that like train dancers to create like a perfect choreography, the fact is still dance is very much like in the moment. It happens and then it's over. Like, yeah, there's recording, but there's no like tangible product that you can do with dance, It's just the movement, the process. That's how creation works, Even though there are tangible mediums like yarn and paper and things like that, the act of creating, it just happens. The magician energy is not exemplified by the finished product. It's exemplified by the behavior, the act of creating and making, and again, creating. How many times can I say creating? My gosh. So that's Magician Energy, Top Tarot Trumps, and Tarot Memoirs. Do you have a favorite magician from any of your decks? Do you have any magician moments, magician energies in your life that you feel are prominent? So that's all for today. We'll wrap up here. In the meantime, I hope you have the energy, the inspiration to make whatever you feel like making and to enjoy the process of creating. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Bye!